positive here. This is pretty extraordinary what Trump is doing. We have talked about economy, border crime. He is delivering on a high level. And it's not just us telling you this. I was watching this over the weekend, I believe. Harry Enten came in and said, the Trump administration is the most influential this century, and maybe going back decades and decades into last century in terms of the changes that they are implementing and the policy perspectives they're putting in place. Cut 26. This is CNN.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Trump is remaking the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this, 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about a level, an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States.
He's doing so much, Buck, that I feel oftentimes we're getting bogged down in the muck and not recognizing some of the massive, substantial changes. Here's one more clip. Trump is remaking the country via executive orders. I think you can go back now 100 years to FDR. I think you can argue that Trump is the most consequential president since FDR. Not saying I 100% agree with that. I think you can make that historic argument. That's the one CNN's making, cut 27.
We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this, how is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century, and to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year, and we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making.
When CNN's saying it, Buck, I think it is representative of just how much he's delivering on so far in the first 6 months of his presidency, the likes of which, frankly, we may not have seen in anybody's life who's out there listening to us right now. Sometimes I think that gets missed. Look, they've tried to say, hey, he's responsible for what's going on in Gaza. I think that's hard to put on Trump.
Yeah,
they tried to say he hasn't ended the war in Ukraine and Russia yet. Again, I think that's hard to put on Trump. The only real thing is the resistance 2.0 through the judiciary. We'll play some of these cuts for you, but calling him Hitler, the attacks, I think Democrats increasingly are kind of throwing up their hands. Now, if they win the House, will they impeach him? Probably. Will that have any impact at all? No.
What would be funny, though, is watching MSNBC and the New York Times act like impeachment 3, this time it's real. You know, it's gonna be like a really bad sequel to a movie that never should have been made in the first place. Like, now the walls are really closing in.
Well, I don't even know what the ground they'll impeach him for on
matter.
3 is, right? I mean, and it is true that it doesn't matter.
Can I bring, actually, Clay, I want to bring a VIP email into the mix here on this, because we're getting a lot of VIP emails from this. And again, we're telling you what we think. And Clay and I don't even coordinate on these things before, like the show. We'll talk about topics, but we're not having long conversations about where we're going to, we're both just being honest with you about I don't even think the subpoenas that Comer's putting out, those testimonies aren't even going to happen for the most part. Okay. That's just the truth. It's just the truth. So you can get mad at me or whatever, but if you're mad at me today, in 6 months, when you know that I'm right, please say, thank you, Buck, for telling us what you knew was true. The other stuff, some of the other stuff, I'm not, the grand jury. I said on Will Kane's show yesterday on Fox, that's a big step. That indicates this, maybe something is going to happen there. But Joseph, our VIP, sent us this. And I think this is an important point to keep in mind with all of this stuff here. He writes, please stop saying that nothing is going to work. How many charges were brought against Trump? How many were legit? How much for Trump in legal fees? You guys are so bad at lawfare. Start suing Obama into the poorhouse. Okay, let's just take a step back. What happened after all the stuff they did to Trump? Okay, let's take a moment here. They did all this stuff to Trump, and what happened? He won the election. He smoked everybody in the primary. He crushed the opposition in the general election and is the most powerful president of our lifetimes, and the Democrat Party is still licking their wounds. So keep in mind that this lawfare stuff that they did, as annoying and underhanded as it was, got absolutely steamrolled. All of it, absolutely steamrolled. So the notion that this is some secret weapon that Trump is refusing to use for his part ignores the recent history of it got completely crushed. Trump stomped this thing under his heel like a little squishy bug, okay? Remember that, everybody. Remember what just happened.
Yeah, it actually benefited him. And in fact, if you could go into a multiverse world, what would the election in 2024 have looked like if Democrats had just said, hey, we're going to run against Trump, but we're not going to put lawfare in play? Right? They hadn't ever raided Mar-a-Lago. They hadn't ever brought charges on the bookkeeping in New York City. They hadn't filed charges in Atlanta in the ridiculous Fannie Willis case. None of that had happened. Jack Smith never came in as a special counsel and tried to prosecute. I think it would have hurt Trump. And I think it's actually a good lesson that, to Buck's point here, Trump actually has made billions of dollars in retrospect. The other thing is, you're not going to bankrupt Barack Obama. Every lawyer in America, every lawyer in America just about who is on the East Coast wants to rep Barack Obama for free.
Yes.
I mean, and most of these guys are super wealthy and will get incredible representation. It'll all be paid for by donors. I think the historical record matters, but I think the idea of people going to prison is going to be very difficult to pull off.
I think that Trump is going through this process with his hand-picked team in his second administration. It's interesting. There's some on the right, Clay. They very much disagree with you and me, but on some of this stuff, they're actually disagreeing with Trump.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Okay? He's making these calls. He's making these decisions. And look at how often he has been right and has seen his way through and everything else. So when I'm saying, hey, I think Pam Bondi is handling this way, this is how this is going to go, and someone is writing in and telling us, hey, here's what you guys should be saying, they should do the following. Keep in mind, Trump and his team are not doing the following, whatever it may be. They're doing it this way. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe they have some understanding, and I think we all know they do, of what the political dynamics are here and what benefits the administration. So, and nobody wants justice and vengeance more than Trump for what was done to him. But I think he understands the big picture here.
Let me give you a sports analogy as we go to break, because I think it's a good one. Basically, Trump is Tom Brady with the New England Patriots or Michael Jordan with the Chicago Bulls in the midst of an unbelievable dynasty. Can you quibble with some of the decisions that Tom Brady or Michael Jordan make on a play-by-play basis? Sure. Should you also at times just sit back and be like, damn, I'm glad I get to watch this? Mostly yes. That's kind of the way I feel right now about Trump 2.0 is if you were a Patriots fan during the Brady dynasty or you were a Bulls fan during the Jordan dynasty, I don't want to nitpick because Jordan should have passed instead of taking a jumper. He's still Jordan. Yeah, Brady might miss a deep ball every now and then, but he's still the greatest to ever do it. What we're seeing right now, in my opinion, from a sports analogy perspective, is Brady and Jordan like from the Trump team. They're performing at a dynastic level. So I think a lot of people who are nitpicking are missing the larger success. And you're going to be, 20 years from now, you're going to be sitting back like, man, I would give anything to have Trump 2.0 underway. That's my thoughts. That's kind of the way I feel about analyzing things right now.
Well, I don't know if we can discount J.D. Vance's second term so quickly, Clay, but nonetheless.
I hope, by the way, we have unbelievable presidents still to come. I wake up every day still with a smile on my face because I know Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and I don't know that we've ever had a president like this
There's
before.
also a lot of stuff that he does that I haven't even thought should be done by a president that I really like, and that has never happened before. You know, I remember the Bush years. I was like, can you just do the obvious smart thing, you imbecile? Can you just do this? And sometimes they just disagreed. All right, I gotta tell you for a second here. I got to talk about trust and wills. The last thing you want to do is leave your family with confusion or legal problems after you're gone, because all of us are heading there one day. That's why having a trust or will is essential. It is the responsible thing to do. Make sure your wishes are clearly understood. Your loved one shouldn't be left to deal with unnecessary complications during a time of grief. Without a will, your assets might be distributed in ways you never intended. Probate is long, complicated, and expensive, but it's avoidable with a simple trust in place. A trust or a will sets a clear plan for how you want your estate to be handled. With trustandwill.com, creating what is simple, affordable, and brings real peace of mind. I've got a plan in place, and knowing my family is set up the right way is absolutely the way forward. Protect your legacy and protect your loved ones. Visit trustandwill.com/buck, and you'll get 20% off today. That website is trustandwill.com/buck. Do the right thing. Get this done. Cross this off your list. And you won't have to think about it again. Trustandwill.com/buck for 20% off. Peace of mind starts with a plan.